Mary Alice, I think you're on mute.
I was muted that whole time. Oh my gosh. Well, hi, everybody. Let me welcome you where you can actually hear me this time. Okay, thank you, everybody, for joining. The weird thing was, I think it was still like rolling my captions. So that's why I thought everybody was hearing me. Boy, thank you all so much. Okay, always a fun start. Yay, technology. All right. So thank you for joining. If you have questions, feel free to unmute because apparently that is the key to being heard and ask your questions. You can also use the chat feature to be able to ask any questions that you need. Um, we are going to go ahead and run through several slides. The reason we have this next steps meeting is to kind of help give you an idea of where are you at within the program, what's coming up next. And we try and do all of that before you're at the end of the class being like, what happens now? So we'll go ahead and start rolling through. Reach out with questions. Teresa and Susie, if you can keep an eye on the chat in case there's any questions that I don't get to make sure everybody has things answered. And off we go. Okay, so thank you for joining the Next Steps meeting. The first thing that's probably going to come into most people's mind is what are my options? Many of you might already be familiar with the information about our program tracks that we've been transitioning into during the year last year. But in case you hadn't seen it, and or if it's been a while since you took a look at it because it's been several weeks since you even applied for this intro class, then I wanted to review it really quick. We offer these two track options: web development with full stack JavaScript or data engineering with Python. And you might be wondering, how are you going to take a Python class if you just spent the last almost 15 weeks learning JavaScript, which is a different programming language than Python? When we built the current Python Essentials class, we took that into account. So you will be covering Python syntax, so that new language, in the next class you take if you're taking Python Essentials, if you're on that data engineering track. Um, and in addition to that, even though you're learning a new programming language, if you're in the Python track, your next class also, like, the Python language leans on concepts that you will have learned in JavaScript. So you'll have that that way to be able to leverage that knowledge. Like, a for loop still achieves the same things whether you write it in the syntax of JavaScript or whether you write it in Python language. It's still achieving the same end. So regardless of whether you choose web development or data engineering, it's important to keep the big picture in mind when you're in all of our classes, just to get comfortable with those overall concepts that you're learning. Because even if programming languages change, even if they make updates, because JavaScript wasn't always what it is now, it's gone through a number of versions where different things have been added and changed. So being able to still understand those concepts of, like, what is a loop? How does it work? What is a conditional? How does it work? Things of that variety are important concepts to know regardless of what language you're working in. So that was one thing I just wanted to kind of lay out there in case you're like a little daunted by the possibility of learning a new language. Um, but yeah, if you want to take a look at any of those details, feel free to visit codethedream.org career pathways. That's where it'll give you a visual on what those are like. And we also even have a quiz that you can take if you're still kind of on the fence and you're not sure, like, which way should I go. Then we have this handy little career path quiz that's available through that Career Pathways website, or you can go to tinyurl.com CTD Career Path Quiz, and that'll help you kind of guide yourself along. But also trust yourself, because you might already have an inclination one way or the other, and this meeting might help you figure out which way you're leaning once you hear a little bit more about what we have to offer. Okay, so let's dive a little deeper into each of these. The web development track includes the React and Node classes in that order. So you need to successfully complete React before you take Node. We do have a practicum after you complete both the React and then subsequently the Node class. And we do have a pipeline for apprenticeship through the web development track. So in React, you'll be learning how to build a more sophisticated site using the React framework. So frameworks come with a set of file structures like the ones that you built in class. So you have a CSS folder for your styling stuff, a JS folder for your functionality, your index file that handles the main page in HTML. It's similar to that, but it's much more complex because it can do a lot more things, a little more robust, as they say. The React framework also has rules in place that allow you to be able to reuse code in helpful ways. React sites tend to be a bit more complicated than obviously a single page site that you're building right now. And they do still have a single page that can re-render based on what the user is interacting with. So a tangible example of this would be like if you're using a weather app and you click between the 7-day forecast and the hourly forecast, you're still technically at the same page. They're just changing what the content of the page is when you click to update it to what it is that you're looking for. So that's some of the magic of React. And then in Node and Express, after you graduate React, are tools that you'll learn in the Node class is Node and Express. And that's what allows you to interact with a database for the data that you would use on your React site. So if we're still thinking about this from a weather app example, then Node would be how the weather data is gathered. The React front end would display that information to the user. The Express is what you would use for those API interactions. So it's just kind of like a quick overview. It's very web-based. It's very user-centric, I guess would be the way I'd describe it, because even how you're structuring your data, how you're accessing your data, how you're protecting your data in the Node class, and how you're designing the site that allows the users to see and do stuff with all of that data are all things that you kind of have to keep the user in mind. Any questions to start with about React stuff before I move on to Python stuff? All right, we'll keep on keeping on then. Okay, so we've talked about web development, but you also have the option to go data engineering route after intro. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. The Python Essentials class, that would be what you would take next if you want to go data engineering track with Python. And the Python Essentials class teaches web scraping, which is writing code that scours websites for information and collects all of that data. Data visualizations, which is writing code that allows a user to graphically see data. So think bar graphs, pie charts, for example, to kind of visualize what it is that you're looking at. Python is a very versatile language, and it can be used for everything from building sites, just like you do with React and JavaScript, to analyzing large amounts of data, to supporting AI tools. And that's what you start getting into in the second level of Python classes. But the data engineering track, while we don't have a pipeline that feeds into the apprenticeship at this moment, we are working on building that out. And regardless, the language is very popular. It's flexible in the industry. It's a valuable skill to have in your skill set, and it could potentially help you find industry work maybe a bit sooner. We have heard from some folks that there are jobs in the market for data engineering, despite the AI surge that we've seen. So if your goal is get into a job quickly, Python might be right for you, especially if data is something that you enjoy working with and you like that sort of problem solving, puzzly kind of aspect of coding. After that Python Essentials class in the Python track, then you would take Python AI and Cloud Computing. And that has you looking more at the data and less at, okay, I've gathered all of this data and I displayed it in a helpful way for the user, and more about looking at the quality of that data and figuring out how it's used in larger constructs. So Python Essentials skills you would take with you into the Python AI and cloud computing, and you would start looking at, okay, the data that I have, is this clean data? Are there duplicates? Are there errors? Is there anything that's kind of off about it that needs to be cleaned up before we take a look at the numbers? It's also used for finding patterns in data. So as you can see, the mention about machine learning, that would be the next section in that advanced class, where you're learning how to identify the patterns within the data. And then even moving on to development of AI tools, where it's using text base for AI large language model kind of constructs. So Python is a very powerful and popular tool. It's used across many industries for many things. A lot of people who work with it appreciate it for its simplicity and adaptability. A lot of students that I've talked to say that the language feels a little bit easier to read and understand than JavaScript for some folks. And it was built to be that way. It was intended to try and make it a little more user-friendly, a little more familiar language-wise. But you also do work with more complex concepts, so you need to keep that in mind too. And it does have a very broad scope compared to JavaScript, which has a little bit more of sort of a browser web focus scope to it. Susie and Teresa, is there anything regards to like Python or web development that you feel I've left out that you think would be helpful for students to be aware of?
I think you covered it. This is
Yeah, I think
Susie.
so too.
Okay, and Michael had a question. Go ahead, Michael.
Yes, hi Mary. So I had two different questions. One is concerning the web development. is Node back end compared to front
Yes.
end?
Yeah,
Okay.
Node is backend, Express is kind of like your middleware, and then React is your front end. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And second question is the Python. Is does it have a front end and back end as well?
So it depends how you're using it. In the context of data engineering, technically, I guess you would have a front end if you're building those data visualizations or building a dashboard that people who are analyzing this data would work with. And that's kind of like a front end, I guess is the best way to describe it. Teresa, Susie, please correct me if I'm wrong about any of that. If you're using it for web development, then yes, you can use Python in either context. But the way we're teaching it, it's more about data more so than about web browser internet experience, if that makes sense.
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Perfect. These are good questions. There were some questions, yeah, about how long the classes are. I'm definitely going to be covering all of that stuff too, and when it starts as well. Okay, so I'll keep putting right along. This is the visual that you'll see on the Career Pathways website if you visit our Career Pathways, where you can either go React, Node Express, Web Dev Curriculum, apply for CTD Labs apprenticeship for jobs, or Path 2 Data Engineering Python 100, which is called the Python Essentials class, Python 200 in Databases, which we called the Python AI and Cloud Computing class, a data practicum, and then apply for jobs. And the highlights that I want to kind of pull out here, besides the dates that you see in that orange box on the side as well, is where are these paths taking you, right? Obviously, you're in a program getting an education with the end goal of working in the industry. We all know that things are very unpredictable in a lot of ways right now. And so while we may not have the answers as far as, oh yeah, you can 100% find jobs in this particular niche area, nobody can really see into the future to know, 6 months from now when you finish the program or a year from now when you finish the program, where will the jobs be? Nobody has that crystal ball, unfortunately. And as a nonprofit, we aren't able to offer jobs to every student that comes through our program. So that's why we're paying close attention to trends as best we can. And we're making very intentional choices to try and be that connection between our students and jobs as we're able to. This year, especially, we've been working on beefing up some of our career development support as far as getting resumes reviewed for graduates and taking a look at portfolios and profiles, working with you as far as interview techniques and things of that variety. So there'll be regular changes that are coming throughout the year to improve career development support in that realm, regardless of whether you want to go for our apprenticeship, whether you want to start searching for jobs. We're trying to really beef up that section as best we can for students. So yeah, no matter what changes happen in tech now or in the future, because we all know that tech is ever changing and ever evolving with all of the versions that keep getting rolled out, and AI comes along and this new thing and that new thing. But the big key takeaway that I want all of you to hear and consider is that enjoying the actual work in what you're doing is going to go a long way, both to bolster you for any kind of challenges as you're learning and working your way through and applying for jobs, but also that passion that you have for it, that excitement for it, because you enjoy what you're doing. That'll come through as well, and it'll make you a more desirable applicant for jobs in the industry because they'll see that you're motivated and excited, and you want to find out more and you want to learn more. So if that's been the feeling for you, is that you've been excited about some of the things you've seen in class, then you're in the right spot. And now you just have to figure out what excites you more, the data or the web. And that's hopefully something that you can come to between talking to mentors, talking to cohort leaders, and the presentation we do tonight. Hopefully it'll kind of help you start to tease out some of those things. One thing that Teresa had mentioned to me when we were talking about this meeting earlier is you can't really make a wrong choice. So even if you were to go down a path and select, web development or data engineering, if you make it through that pathway and you're like, yeah, I just don't love that work, that's okay, because you've still built on your skills, which gives you leverage when you're applying for jobs, because the more variety of things that you know, then the more flexible and versatile you'd be. And it could raise your appearance compared to other applicants because there's more that you're aware of and new things that come out. You can reference those, just like I had mentioned, even though you learn JavaScript, going into a Python class, you can reference your knowledge in some other area to be able to pick up something else faster. So those are definitely things that we want you to kind of keep in mind. And we want to make sure that the time you invest with us is leading you towards a career that you're actually going to enjoy and that you're not going to be like, oh, why did I do this? I absolutely hate this. So if you have questions, if you
Mary.
want to talk to anybody, feel free to.
Mary
So-
Alice, just to reiterate, it's only the web development that has the apprenticeship.
Correct.
There was a question on the chat. So.
Yes, as of right now, so as of today, the only pathway that leads to the apprenticeship is through web development. But we are trying to look at, are there clients that would have products that need to be built that would incorporate Python? How and where can we do that? It's just sort of a fluid, flux, uncertain kind of situation. So we want you to be aware, and we want to be transparent about that, that going data engineering might not set you up specifically for the Code the Dream apprenticeship, but it will set you up with skills that would be helpful outside of Code the Dream. So that's why it's really important to kind of lean into what do you enjoy most. Okay, I'll hit those dates really quick. You'll hear them multiple times throughout tonight. March 10th is when your intro class ends. April 1st is when your spring term begins. So that would be either your React or your Python Essentials class. Summer term is when you would go into these next level advanced classes, either the Node Express if you're on the web development track, or Python AI and cloud computing if you're on data engineering track. And then fall term is when the practicums would happen. Practicum is kind of like a final project to the whole pathway, but it's not final project for intro specifically. I don't know if that's helpful, Arturo, but yeah, it's sort of like a capstone to your whole project track, where you'll incorporate things that you've learned from all of the classes throughout the pathway. Great. Okay. So this just gives you dates to be able to reiterate, because I saw the question in the chat about when do these things kind of start and stop. So right now we're wrapping up that fall 2025 term, even though we're in 2026. So until March 10th is when you're in this intro to programming class. Spring would be either React or Python, depending on if you're doing the JavaScript developer or if you're doing the Python data track. Summer is when you would either do Node or AI and cloud computing, and then Python and React Node practicums would happen in the fall for you. So hopefully that organizes it visually for you. And I will also share a screenshot of this in your channels too, if you need or want to have it for quick and easy reference for when the dates are. Beginning this year, we are moving to a quarter term. You'll notice that these start and end dates are a little bit closer together than they have been in the past. And so that and a few other changes are going to be happening in 2026. I'm going to take the next slide to highlight a couple of those changes, but I just want to pause real quick in case there's been any questions up to this point about the two tracks and when they kind of progress through. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
So now that we have two tracks, and especially since one is kind of more experimental, and am I also too loud? I'm actually on mobile right now. I don't want to make sure.
No, you're good. You're not too loud for
Okay.
me.
Thank you. Yeah, it doesn't adjust volume automatically, I don't think so. Thank you. So especially since Python is now more experimental, if we get to the end of the track and like we're not finding success, or like you said, we don't feel that like it's the right fit for us, does Code the Dream have like a policy in place where we could go back and attempt another track?
Yes, yeah. Once you've completed one of your tracks, you're definitely welcome to come back. And we've had several students do that in the past. Even when we didn't have this track system in place, then we would have students be like, okay, I've taken these classes, I feel good on this, I want to expand my skills even further. And that's when they would start looking into like the Ruby on Rails class that we had back in the day that isn't available anymore, or they reached out about starting to take the Python classes. So that's definitely an option for you.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for being so generous. Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if like we have experience in Python, or if we have experience in like one of the classes, is there a system in place at Code the Dream where like if we get to the end of a course and then next course hasn't started, like can we get access to like the syllabus so we know what to expect and we might be able to start that work early
Oh, that's an
and like not
interesting
necessarily
and
skip the
great-
class?
question. I can definitely share, since this track system's new for me as well, administratively, I like this idea, and I can definitely share like the weekly learning objectives and topics from the class that you'll be coming up on around the time that you'll be registering for your next term. That's one of the changes that I'll be covering in the next slide, that you'll actually be registering for your next class earlier than the tail end of your current class. But yeah, we can definitely give you access to be able to take a look and see what are those concepts that'll be covered. You won't have access to the actual lessons until the class begins, though. And usually it's actually, I think, a week before class begins is when you have access to the full curriculum and you can kind of start diving in then. But the terms will also be shorter too. This is a great segue, but before I complete my segue, did you have any other questions, Michael? I just wanted to make sure.
No problem. I think that's great. And so it sounds like we can only skip that first course, the course we're in right now. And then other than that, we want to do all of these. And then to clarify also, in terms of you saying like what you can make available before the course starts. So to use an example of what we're seeing right now, like we have the objectives and then we have, sorry, Lisette. So we have objectives and then we have like lessons from the Odin project or Scrimbo or sometimes like another link. So you're saying like the objectives would be available, but not those like content to review?
Exactly. Yeah, that's correct.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. Okay, so the segue that Michael was helping me get into was those changes for 2026. So as I had mentioned, we're doing our best to pay attention to like job market trends, being thoughtful about ways that we can help you all find jobs in sort of this ever evolving industry. And so if you feel like Code the Dream is changing something again, this is why, as we're trying to do like tech does and continually improve on the past version of ourselves. So these are some of the changes that you can expect this year. I'm going to highlight them kind of quickly here in your student orientations for spring term. Then I'll be going into each of these more in depth. The biggest ones that touch on some of the questions Michael was bringing up are in that first section about quarters. So I mentioned the dates on the last slide where we had, when your terms start and end look a little bit closer together. We are moving to a quarterly schedule. So in 2026, we're on a quarter basis term. We used to be on trimesters. So we'll have 4 11-week long quarters each year. All the classes will be 11 weeks long, whether you're in React, whether you're in Node, whether you're in Python 100, Python 200, Intro, whatever. All of them will be 11-week long classes, and there'll be a 2-week gap between them. So it's a pretty tight turnaround between when you are wrapping up one class and going into the other. And that's in part why you wouldn't have access to the lesson materials too soon, because we want you to have at least a little bit of a breather in between finishing one course and starting another. But of course, you'll have access to those objectives prior to, so you can see what the topics are and maybe start digging around a little on your own if you'd like to. And then, of course, the week before class starts, then you can start taking a look at actual lesson content, just like you did with this course as well, too. We also have updated the curriculum to fit into this quarterly schedule. All this past year, we had excellent individuals helping with that. Teresa was among them. Susie was among them. And so we've built the curriculum to be able to fit into that 11-week schedule. We've tested that curriculum with small groups of students, and we'll be having that curriculum go live for everybody starting in spring. All of the classes that got this sort of 15 to 11 week makeover, we made sure that we weren't cutting any skills that are going to be help setting you up for success. But it's also a very tight schedule. And so we just want you to be aware that how much time a lesson will take you in the spring might be a little bit longer than how it was in the intro class, because we're doing a 15-week course in 11-week time span. So what we're seeing on average is it's a little bit closer to 20 hours instead of the 15 hours average that a lot of folks are seeing. But of course, lesson times and how much it takes you and how much you grapple with something can vary greatly from person to person. We do still have all of the same systems in place. Like if you're struggling with it and you need to either take a step back and kind of get solid on certain skills before you can jump into that 11-week pace, that's fine. You can do those leaves of absence. If you wind up wanting to retake a class, then you can definitely petition to retake the class to kind of reinforce everything and let it sink in a second time around. All of those things are totally fine. None of them ever negatively reflect on you. Everybody learns at different paces. Everybody needs different things, and knowing what you need only raises people's respect and esteem of you for knowing what you need and being able to advocate for yourself about, I need a little more time to work on this concept, or, yep, I got that one done. I'm ready to move on to the next. So definitely keep all of those things in mind. Other changes that are coming in 2026 are AI related, of course. That's the hot button topic everybody talks about. So, besides job market uncertainties, AI is impacting tech in day-to-day ways as well. More and more people are finding that the degree to which they already have knowledge in an area changes how they're using their AI. So, experienced developers don't use it the same way somebody that's newer to it or somebody that's mid-level uses it. And since you all are in a learning mode in classes, then we've made some curriculum changes to help AI support you in classes in a productive and meaningful way. We have beta tested with a variety of classes this past year, just the AI review tool in general that you also had access to. That's still going to be available for all classes every term this year. So that's not going to be interrupting or changing anything. 2 new features that are going to be coming along the way. Some might be ready for spring, some might be more in your summer classes. The first one's going to be quizzes. So it'll be short, less than 5 question comprehension checks on the most important parts of your lesson. And the quizzes aren't going to be in like stressful pop quiz kind of format. They're going to be in a dialogue format with a chat feature in the reviewer. So it'll prompt you with some questions that we've built. It'll give you a few tries to kind of work out the correct answer on your, for yourself. But if you can't come up with the correct answer yourself, then it helps explain it well to you as far as why is that the correct answer about that particular topic. And you'll be able to retake them. You can retake them for review later on. You can retake them if you felt like you didn't do very well on it, whatever you'd like to do. So that's one feature that's going to be coming along. And then the second is AI first review. So our student numbers have been growing, and we have been very fortunate that we've had volunteers to support the growth of the student body that we've been having. But we know that there might come a time when those things don't always stay nice and level to have enough mentors to support. So that's one of the reasons that we were looking into it, as well as giving you all faster turnaround times on your reviews. I know sometimes it's frustrating to turn in your assignment and then you're like, okay, I really want to know how I did on that so I know if I can keep rolling with my work or not, or so I can find out what was like the sticky spot and get that worked out. So the AI first review is going to be when you submit your assignment, the AI review tool is going to check your work first and give you an immediate answer about, yes, your assignment's good to go, you can keep on keeping on, or this needs revisions. If it says need revisions, then you'll be directed to interact with your mentor or with an assignment reviewer. So that way you can work through those tricky spots together. They'll also be alerted so that way they know that your assignment was initially marked as needs revisions so that they can connect with you. So besides that support when we catch things through AI first sort of filter, we will still be having humans checking behind it because this is a new tool and we want to make sure that it has validity and strength to it. So there will still be human reviewers. Nothing with that is changing. They will be taking a look at anything that you all flag as, I don't know that this is right, as far as AI responses. They'll be taking a look at just spot checking ones, whether they were right or wrong. And of course, they'll be checking anything that's marked as needs revisions. So those are some things coming AI wise to be able to help. Not specific to the AI review tool, but we also are working on adding an AI prompt writing content in your lesson plans as well too. To help guide you as far as the most effective ways to use AI while you're learning. So less of, what's the right code for this and more of, I understand this concept this way. Can you tell me if I'm right or not? And so we'll have very detailed guides about how to be able to use AI to enhance your learning and understanding rather than just having it shortcut any kind of learning or understanding. And then lastly is procedures. We're going to have a couple of procedural changes, as I alluded to a little bit earlier. Registration, rather than having to wait until the tail end when you're stressed out and turning in your final projects and trying to get everything squared away by the deadline of the class, then we'll have you register earlier on in class. And that because we'll already know kind of what track you're moving along from that standpoint. You'll be in the React class, so we know if you're in the React class, you'll be going to Node next. So the registration process hopefully will be a little bit easier. You'll register mid-class for your next term's course. And then we just confirm that you're good to go with that class at the end of your existing one. And this is not going to happen with this term. So we're already almost to the end. You do not need to do anything registration wise from here to the end of your Mars intro class at all. This will start with your React or your Python Essentials class next term. We'll still confirm that you've passed your class before moving you on to the next step in your track. But don't worry about it this time. I just wanted y'all to be aware so you're not blindsided by it next quarter. Questions about any of the changes for 2026 that anybody needs or wants answered before I move along?
I like all
Thank
the
you,
AI.
Mary
Thank you
Alice.
so much.
Sorry, somebody had said something about AI.
I got one.
Oh yeah, Steven, go ahead.
Uh, I was the AI reviewer thing where it posts through. I was just curious if I left a comment or commented out code that's a statement above some code for the AI. Does it take that into account? Like, I didn't feel right about this code, it seemed off, but it gave me the result.
A
Like,
very specific question. I'm gonna have to check with the team about that, Stephen, because I'm not 100% sure. I know right now, initially, it looks predominantly at the code and compares it to sort of what expected would be.
okay,
But I'll have to check with them because obviously it is a little bit more nuanced than just, checking code against an answer key kind of a thing.
right.
But I'll
Well,
find
it's
out and I'll
just,
let you know what I
in
hear
our
back from them.
IDEs, you can write a comment and Copilot
Yeah.
will snatch that comment up. So I was just curious if that was something you guys added.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. I'll have to check into that and I'll get you more information. Cool. All right. I'll keep kind of putting along then. So not everything's changing in 2026, even though I just showed you a slide of a whole bunch of stuff that's different. There are a lot of changes, but there's also a lot of things that won't change. You're still going to have group sessions with mentors, live synchronously on a Zoom call. You're still going to have access to one-on-one mentors for help. We're not getting rid of all humans and replacing them all with robots. You're still going to have the same format. You'll have that Learns app with your lesson pages, lesson materials, and assignments that you'll go through each week. You're still going to be building on things that you learned from intro. So there's going to be some things that change, but there's also going to be a lot that's very familiar that you've already experienced by going through your intro class. So information that I have on here is just kind of a reiteration. React is front end JavaScript language. It's a React framework for building web applications. Python Essentials is going to be data work, not necessarily web development, data work with Python. You'll learn about the Python language, learn data cleaning and validation, visualization, so building out charts and graphs, and then web scraping, so pulling data off of the web. So those are some of the things that you'll learn. React and Python Essentials are prerequisites for the next steps in those tracks. So you do have to pass React to take Node. You do have to pass Python Essentials to take Python AI and cloud computing. With the condensing down from 15 to 11 weeks, and because you're getting into more advanced topics, there is likely going to be feeling that there is a bigger challenge in these classes that you move on to. So just prepare yourself that you're kind of amping up and you're stretching those brain muscles and learning lots of good stuff. Okay. The advanced classes, as I mentioned, they'll start week 1 on April 1st. Orientation dates and times are still being determined, but they'll be the week of March 18th to the 24th. So just kind of keep that in mind and keep your evening weekday schedule a little bit lighter that week if you're able to. That's usually when we wind up having orientations or on weekday evenings. Week 0 will start on March 25th. You'll still have that week leading up to your lesson 1, just like you did in intro. Be able to get your feet under you, make sure that you know where all your tools are, doing any kind of like environment setup or things like that that you need to. You'll still have that week prior to class to be able to do that. Once your intro final work is in and evaluated, you'll indicate in that lesson 15 assignment, I'll go over that in just a second, about which class you want to take, whether it's going to be React or Python, and then your official class offer and registration details, orientation details will come to you on or before March 17th. So that kind of gives you an outline of sort of what's coming down the pike. So let's get into how do we get into these advanced classes? And it's going to be easy as 1, 2, 3. Step 1, lesson 15 assignment submission form, which is the same form you've been using all along. When you select that it's lesson 15 that you're turning in, you'll see a couple of additional fields. One is going to be, do you want to take React or do you want to take Python next? And then the others are fields for you to be able to put in your video demo that you're going to do for your final project. So there'll be a couple of fields different than on your assignment submission form than you've seen in previous weeks, but it's still lesson 15, turning that in by the end of your lesson 15 week. Step 2 is completing your intro requirements. So have all of your assignments turned in. Use that lesson 15 submission form to turn in your finished portfolio and API projects. Those things need to be done by March 10th, no exceptions. So make sure your final projects are done, turned in, demos turned in, assignments are squared away, all of that by March 10th. You're also required to take 2 assessments, which I'll go into greater depth here in the next slide in order to pass intro. And both of those need to be completed by March 17th. So you actually have a week after class ends so that you're not juggling finals and demos and registering for classes and all this other kind of crazy stuff and assessments on top of that, because yikes. So that's why we give you a week after class to do this. And I'll be sharing Slack announcements as well too that give you more details as well. Okay. Once final projects are done and turned in and your assessments are taken, then it'll just be register for your class. As I mentioned, you'll get those details on or before March 17th. And that'll be after we've confirmed that your final projects have been reviewed and are approved, that you've taken both of those required assessments, assignments are in, all of that good stuff. So 1, 2, 3 are your steps. Questions about the steps? All right, let's get into this assessment before you all have a heart attack, because I know anytime anybody says assessment or tests, then the blood pressures start to rise, right? Okay, so as I mentioned, the final projects are due by March 10th. Turn those in on the lesson 15 assignment submission form. The coding assignments are as follows. So you've got from all of week 15, so that final week, in case you have your final project done early and you want to go ahead and tackle the assessments, you can, but also the week after class from March 11th to the 17th, you have that whole week, no new lessons, final project should be behind you. You have that time to be able to take these assessments. You do need to complete both of them. Before you even start those, I'm going to be sharing a sample little short baby assessment with you, just so that way you can see what the tool is, see how to log into it, see how it works, where all the bells and whistles and buttons on all of it, and get yourself comfortable with it. We do not require you to take that sample test, but it's a good idea to figure out where you're going before you get there. So it's okay to take a look at it as many times as you need to beforehand. We don't require a specific score to be achieved on the coding assessment or the concepts assessment. So don't even worry about score. Just throw it out of your mind completely. We know that this might be the very, very first time you're ever even seeing a technical assessment, and that's why we want you to take them, because it's better that you see them now when your score doesn't matter to your progress and success than see them for the first time when you're in a job interview, because that is extremely stressful. So that's why we give these to you, is so that way you can take a look and see what they're like, get a feel for them. And it's low stakes because your score isn't going to matter. We just want to see that you have taken them, that you have gotten exposure to those. So taking tests, yes, can be very stressful, but please don't worry about them. We're asking you to take them just not so that we can see how much you know, because you've already been showing us how much you know. You've done your assignments, you're doing your final projects all throughout class. The growth we've been seeing in the class matters more to us than a one-time test score. So don't worry about them. Please don't stress yourselves out. You do need to take them though, so that way you can see what it's like. I'm going to share more details in Slack announcements as we get closer, but basically it's an open book kind of assessment for the most part. They have a mini web browser search area in the area, so you can look up certain things. We don't expect you to have every JavaScript method and function memorized. There are people who have been JavaScript developers for probably 30 years or something, and they still don't have all of these things memorized. That's okay. But they are timed. So as you can see, the coding assessment, you have 3 hours to complete it. It's 4 coding challenges. And a coding challenge is usually like a little snippet of stuff. It's going to be, here's an array. We want you to do something to this array. Write the code that, adds 4 to every number in this array, or reorder it so it's alphabetical, or, things like that. So it's going to be just sort of small coding challenges that you wind up needing to do. No AI usage in either of these assessments. That's not permitted. It's not a feature that's available anywhere on the testing platform, and completed by March 17th. The concepts one is an hour to complete. It's 25 multiple choice questions where it'll be, here's a snippet of code. What will the output be if this little snippet of code runs? Or, what does the map method do? Or, things of that variety. And then multiple choice answers for you to be able to select what you think the answer is to those. No AI usage on that either. Questions about the assessments? Hopefully everybody's blood pressures come down a little bit after this conversation. Yeah, so it's open book in that you can use the web search feature that they have in it. I suppose if you have handwritten notes with you, then that's fine to reference as well too, but keep in mind that it's a timed one. But it does look for like, are you toggling between different tabs? Are you copying and pasting code from another tab? Things like that. It'll flag it as there's concerns that there might be cheating involved. So keep in mind as far as that goes, and treat it more as an experience of getting used to what are these like? What are they asking me to do? You will likely not have open access to tools when you're in a technical assessment later down the road.
But students can use their notes, right?
Yeah, and it's also good to kind of review them and see like how much do I know on my own without having to reference, but it's also okay to reference things. Okay. All right, so let's keep on keeping on. I don't think we wound up having any developers join us on the call tonight because I got the date and time together to them a little bit late. But Teresa, Susie, and I can kind of talk a little bit about our experience in this realm as far as, things that we've learned along the way, how we decided where we wanted to go with things, and, what was interesting to us versus that kind of variety. Did either of you ladies want to kind of chime in a little bit about any of these topics, about what made you decide to do what you wanted to do in tech? Or would you like me to jump in first? I'm happy either way.
And I was going to say, for me, jumping into tech, it was more about I didn't want to do other things. Like, this is funny. I didn't want to teach, although I know I'm having with this course. And I like math, but I didn't know what to do with math. But I started doing programming, and always thought it was kind of fun, and I thought it was kind of like a puzzle, and I always I don't know. I'm one of those people, I'll do something 100 times over and over again. So I guess that worked out.
Wonderful.
So
Awesome. Thanks, Susie. Teresa, did you want me to go next, or did you have anything you wanted to kind of chime in with? I'll go ahead and go next.
Sorry, there we go. I
Oh.
can't hear you very well
Okay.
for whatever reason. What were you asking?
If there's anything you want to share as far as like what made you want to go into tech, or any interesting tidbits about like how things changed while you were in there, where you had to pivot or anything like that.
So same Susie and I started back in the olden days, and I started out in math as well, and then I started taking computer science classes, and I was like, well, wait, this is way more fun than math. So I think that's a lot of it. It's frustrating in a lot of ways because getting things to work can be very frustrating, but it's fun. I mean, it really is fun and so satisfying when you get something to work and you see it up on your screen, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very satisfying. It's
Awesome.
the way I feel about it. Even now when I'm doing little projects on the side.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very cool. I think most of you probably know, because I think I allude to it in orientation, but in case I didn't, I have worked all kinds of crazy jobs before I came to Code the Dream. Somewhere along the way, I was like, I just feel so unsatisfied by like all of the jobs I'm working. So I wound up taking like a career test with a psychologist, and they were like, you need to do something like data focused, but also something kind of creative. And so I decided to go to a community college for web design because I liked designing, brochures and business cards and pamphlets and just all kinds of crazy things. I just like make up pretend things for like businesses my mom wanted to dream up and start someday. So I had sort of that creative outlet, but I also really love spreadsheets, like in an unnatural way. I just like how organized they are. So that I think that's probably, came out in those career tests. And yeah, the more I started working with and learning about tech, the more I enjoyed it, both from like the puzzle standpoint, like Susie and Teresa had talked about. But I think I'm in kind of this weird zone where I can be happy either way. Like I like working with data and crunching those numbers and like finding out percentages and, how many of our students are successful and, what backgrounds do they come from and all kinds of interesting data points like that, as well as, designing the slide decks and things that we go forward. So yeah, I like to dabble in both, but that's kind of my background story. I don't know that it's particularly helpful, but I definitely leaned into those creative aspects when I went web design, and I enjoyed going down that rabbit hole of web design. My art skills just aren't as fine-tuned as I would like them to be to really be a successful designer. But hopefully that's a little bit helpful insight wise. Do you all have any questions about us in relation to some of the questions that you see on the screen that we normally have developers kind of touch on? Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
So we're fortunate enough to have 3 women developers leading our course. Did you guys notice like any demographic shifts? It seems like if you look at the history of computing, it started off like a lot of women were doing that work, and then a lot of money came into it, and then we had lots of men coming into the space, and then now it looks like we're getting a shift back where there's more of a demographic balance and lots more diversity. And so I'm curious to know if you guys experienced any of that, and if you have any advice about your experience that we can try and bring to our careers to try and make it more inclusive and welcoming to people who may not be like I guess, the majority in the spaces that we're working in?
That's a great question. I'm gonna let Teresa and Susie answer because they've actually been like in the industry and they've been in it longer to kind of see
Well,
some.
I'll start with this is funny. A woman that I met a couple of years ago when we moved to Blacksburg. She is 83. And when I started talking to her, she also worked, I worked with submarine software. She also worked in the same field with submarine software. And she told me the anecdote when how she fell into working, I mean, at the very beginning of software, women were really at the beginning of it because they could type. So she got her job because she could type. And then, like you said, men discovered there was money in it, so they pushed the women out. And then when Susie and we graduated in 84, 84, 85, there was an article in the Washington Post a few years ago about that was kind of the peak of when women were in graduating. Because I've always said that our graduating class was maybe about 40% women in that
Yeah,
ballpark.
it was pretty high. Yeah.
Relatively high. And then it has started going down, and now we're hoping that it's going to go back up. I mean, what I've found, I really never had, I mean, always issues working with people, but as a woman, never really had too much of a problem in the industry. But as far as women or anybody, I mean, I think you just need to get into the mode of everybody offers different opinions and so much differences in their experiences and what they know and what they can add to a project, and it's all good. That's how you get the best ideas. Um, and I think you'll learn that as you go along. So, so that was my experience. Throw it over to Susie.
Oh, I was gonna say, I'm a video. Yeah, I mean, I would say, well, we obviously came from the same
Same, yeah.
same background, but we did go different. We got hired by different areas of the business, which was interesting because we had like very similar backgrounds, and I think I switched types of projects a lot more than Teresa. But I will tell you, yeah, it was the same thing. Like I got the point, like especially my last project, I think I was one of the older people and a woman, but like everyone was all the technical people were great, and like a lot of the younger people starting out, they were really happy that I had the experience. So I don't know. For the most part, it was all very positive. Oh, and I was going to say, as a tech lead, I, like Teresa, felt like you want everyone's input because that is how you get the best suggestion. Now, sometimes people's feelings would get hurt because you're like, no, we're not going to do that. Or we'll put that on the shelf and think about that. But it was still like getting all the different ideas. And actually it's very important, I think, to make sure that you give everyone a voice and a chance to speak up when you're, especially on your team, because you're all trying to work together to create something. So anyway,
Yeah,
I
and
guess that's
programming especially. I agree with both of what these ladies were saying, although my experience is much limited compared to theirs. But yeah, like programming in general, just think about all of sort of those edge cases that you've had to consider whenever you have an input, like, oh, well, what if somebody puts in numbers instead of letters? Or, there's so many things that it's easy to not think of it because you're so used to your own experiences and your own sort of point of view. So the more variety you have in that, then the stronger the product you'll build because it can account for more things. It can consider more possibilities of things that might go wrong that you can prepare for and counter, or things that you can offer to users that other products might not be able to because they were a little more narrow-minded about things. So that's all I'd add to it. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you all so much. That was wonderful. And thank you all for being willing to, like, once you're established, like, amazing software developers and computer scientists, that you're kind enough to come back and kind of help us hopefully get close to where you guys have been as well. So thank you so much.
Just keep on paying it forward. All right.
Definitely
We
appreciate
also
it.
have
Thanks for
a
setting a good
student.
example.
Sorry, yeah, there you go. We also have a student on the call. I wasn't able to get one of our Python pilot students on the call. Unfortunately, I don't think they were available, too short a notice. But Steven's on the call with us, and so he can share a little bit about what the React class is like, because he just wrapped up the React pilot. So Steven, feel free to share sort of what your process was, about why you went to React, what you enjoyed or what challenged you in class, and if you had to do it all again, would you do it the same way?
So just to give you guys a little bit of backstory, I got the chance to take a year-long MERN WDF course with the last mile, but I didn't get to finish the course. And React was the part I didn't get to finish. Then I found Code to Dream, and they offered it, and I was like, "Yay!" So it's just it was it was like perfect, right? Because I lost the opportunity to have that certification. And then I came to Code to Dream, and now I'm getting it. And that's kind of why I chose to go into React, Node, and Express, because it's that track. Now I feel confident with that full stack. Though I'm still waiting to see how Node and Express weigh in, but let's not get into that. The fun part about React, though, if I could tell you guys, is just learning the new library is almost like learning a new language. It's JavaScript, but it forces you to think about structure in such a new way. That was like one of the most challenging aspects. Like Mary Alice touched on it, she's not joking. React makes you think about your structuring way different in the naming conventions about how you go about passing things around, your properties or props. uh it tells the story of your app, and if you can follow kind of that idea, your naming conventions become easy. Your components are naming your functions. It's a way to signify this is where I'm at through my app, and React has taught me to think in that way. Like, this tells what I'm going as it goes. It's so magical. It really is, how you can pick that, and then you got that challenge of the structure. And I think Teresa was talking about it, how you get all this moving around, all that UI with these different components fitting together on this screen, and then you finally get it to click, and you realize this is this is that. It's I feel like a wizard. I can't lie to you guys. It's really just nerdy magical. The puzzle, you make the pieces, but you have to build them a certain way. The library allows you to think, well, it forces you to think in the structure of this way. So, yes, I would absolutely take it again. Um, and some of the information I could give you guys is don't be afraid to set multiple weekly one-on-one mentor sessions. Don't. Honestly, I set two a week with my group mentor, and then I try to drag my peers into like little pair coding sessions and hang out. So we all try to come together to help each other. And it is something that they touched on. I hope you guys in your classes have been coming together outside of your group meetings and meeting with your peers or buddies, friends that are in the groups and talking these out, because these study hall sessions are going to be what solidifies that knowledge. If you're not teaching it, just talk about it, guys. Because when you get done and you go to work, I understand that that stuff can erase from your brain. I do, but I can gab for hours on React and JavaScript. So I'm gonna cut it loose right there. But yes, I hope you guys enjoy, and it's been a wonderful time with me. I've enjoyed the curriculum and everything these people, these wonderful ladies have done, as well as everybody else, Roy and Reed. It's been a great opportunity and a lovely time. By the way, if you guys run into EJ Mason's the best mentor.
EJ Mason is awesome. Yeah, we've been very fortunate to have a lot of really great mentors that show up at our door and we're like, yes, we'd love to have you. It's wonderful. And I think it's because they're so like-minded with our mission as far as, we want to help others enjoy and learn all of the things that excite us as well too. When you find somebody that's like, oh yeah, I had that same experience, you both get excited about it. And so we try and foster that same kind of thing here. Thanks for sharing, Stephen. That was wonderful. Yeah, the structure for React, I feel like it's JavaScript on steroids. In your JavaScript files right now for your portfolios, you have little code blocks that maybe you can like reuse or repurpose or refactor into different ways to be more streamlined. It's that to an extra degree with React, but it's also really fun too. I wish I could talk more about Python. So please, since I didn't have the opportunity to share a Python experience with you all from a student or from a developer standpoint, then absolutely reach out to your mentors, talk to them about have they done any of that if it's something that you're considering. If you just really like spreadsheets like I do, or you like data and numbers, even if you don't like data and numbers, but you like organizing and finding patterns and finding commonalities, if that sort of puzzling kind of aspect is really enjoyable to you, talk to your mentors about it. Let me know if you're not finding somebody to connect with to get questions answered about what is Python like, so that way I can connect you as best as I can. But yeah. I know it was a good pitch for React for sure, but I promise, especially if you're enjoying data, enjoying patterns, Python will also be extremely fun and exciting for you as well too. Okay, we're almost near the end. Thank you all for hanging in there. I'm going to try and wrap up quickly because we're towards the end of our hour and I don't want to run into Joy's awesome mentor session. So my key takeaways that I usually kind of encourage you all to think about and take away from this meeting and reflect on as you're trying to figure out where to go next is reflect, adapt, and act. So start out with what interests you, play to your strengths. A lot of you might be career changers. I definitely was one. And so just because you're moving into tech doesn't mean everything you've learned before there gets thrown in the trash. Just like if you decide to switch after you're done with the React and Node pathway and you want to come back and take the Python pathway or vice versa, like everything that you learned before isn't something that just kind of falls by the wayside. It actually can weave into your understanding of things and make you stronger. If you're coming from like electrical engineering backgrounds, or if you're coming from medical backgrounds, the tech that you build, knowing the knowledge from your previous career, will help give you sort of that niche and that nuance to be able to fit you into a tech role within that same industry. And you'll understand things better because you've already seen what others in that industry are working with. You'll know how to build the tech that supports them. So those are things that definitely you want to hold on to and kind of just weave a more intricate fabric of yourself as you continue to learn. So yeah, regardless of how you learn to, or what you learn, what, which path you want to take, we also want to make sure that you're understanding big picture concepts, understanding how those puzzle pieces fit together. That's just as important as knowing the syntax, because the details of what you're learning specifically, you'll find patterns in those across, and it'll help you pivot when the industry pivots. So those are something to kind of keep in mind, is if you understand those big picture concepts of, what are Booleans, what are binaries, what are loops and objects, and how do these things work, and what do they look like in one language versus another, all of that's only going to strengthen your skills. Be willing to be flexible and versatile, because you might have to adapt and pivot. Like Susie and Teresa had said, they both went to school for the same thing. They wound up in two different branches of the same industry doing different jobs. So be willing to kind of see where that carries you, and adapt your skills as needed, because you might find something that's really awesome that you hadn't initially considered. And again, just use all of your knowledge. So having that context from previous classes, from previous industries, all of that's going to be an advantage and not a handicap, because it gives you a unique vantage point that others don't have. So yeah. Okay, there's the path options again, just to kind of give you a visual. Feel free to take a screenshot, although I will share this slide deck with you and share that little graphic with you so you can see dates and times of when all of your classes will be coming. And it's okay if you don't follow this path directly also. A lot of things are going on in the world right now. A number of students have had to either take a gap and come back to us, or retake a class, and that's okay. And we're supportive of that. I had to do that as a student. It's all right. Life gets in the way. Don't stress out about it. The important thing is that you still keep an eye on what your goals are, and you keep doing what you can to work towards them. So last is just questions. If there's any other questions at all, now's a great time to ask. The more questions you ask, the more answers you get, is what one of my kids' teachers says. And I love that. And if there's
We had a
any,
question in the chat
yeah,
about
let's see
a
here.
couple different things.
Sure thing. If your mentor has changed, then that should have updated on the link. If you go to your Mars announcements class information tab at the top in Slack, then there'll be a link to find out who your assigned reviewer is. You should still be able to see that. You don't have to only meet with your assigned reviewer, just as a reinforcement, especially as we're getting towards the end. If your assigned reviewer isn't available, you don't have to have that be your one-stop shop or your first stop. You can reach out to any of the one-on-one mentors, or attend any of the group sessions that you need or want to. You may not have the same mentors in React. Some mentors like to focus on the fundamentals and the foundational skills, and so they really enjoy working with the intro class. Some don't necessarily have exposure to React. Maybe they've worked in other JavaScript frameworks. So you might have a new set of mentors, but they'll be just as awesome as Stephen had said. And also, let's see about other questions. Okay. Yes. So lesson 15 assignment submission form, that's going to be the way that you let us know what you want to take next. So when you turn in your final projects on lesson 15, there'll be additional questions on that form for you to be able to indicate what you want to do. And I think that hits all the questions in the chat. But if I missed any, now's a great time to holler them out or type them back in the chat so it pops back up for me.
I had a quick question about AI apprehension, if we think we can fit it in. So lots of people are concerned like AI is going to take all the jobs. Is this really the right time to get into coding? And especially because we have some wonderful mentors here who have a longer track. Like I've heard that this is very similar to like offshoring and then nearshoring, where all the jobs were going away and it was a bad time to get into tech, or like after the .com bust where it was like a horrible time. And then it seems like the people who were willing to hang on were able to get that upswing. I think like right after the .com bust, there was the social media boom. So all the people who left missed out on that massive wave. And so I'm curious to know if you guys have similar perspective about maybe all the doom and gloom about AI could be something similar, and we shouldn't all be freaking out about our futures as software engineers.
My first inclination, and I'll also let Susie and Teresa speak to it, is in every industry, you tend to kind of have these ebbs and flows, and you did an excellent job, Michael, too, of like highlighting all of those sort of highs and lows that we've seen throughout the recent history of technology. And it's such a new product. It's such a new piece of the equation that I think people can't quite grasp the way, like they think it's going to be, oh, this great cure-all, and oh, now we don't need to have as much human resources involved as we do. But the more that they explore it, the more that they work with it, they're going to find areas where it's like, no, this isn't really doing what we need it to do. And so we do still need skilled human individuals that can do the tasks that it is failing at, or that it's not sufficient in. One of the areas that I had talked to a mentor recently about is security. A lot of security features are hidden for that very intention, because you don't want API keys and things out there in the open. And so AI can't even educate itself on it well, because it's supposed to be extracted away from them and not visible to them for it to learn off of. So there are some areas that I think will kind of flux here and there, but I don't think it's necessarily something that's easily predictable, if that's helpful. And I think regardless, there's still going to be a skill set that while AI can do it, a human can probably do it better. And so there might be aspects that they prefer human intervention rather than AI cookie cutter stamping things out. That's my initial reaction and thought, but feel free to add to it, Susie and Teresa.
Well, I just want to say I'm going to date myself even more than I already have. But one of our very first classes, we used punch cards. I'm sure you guys don't even know what punch cards are, but we use punch cards. My very first job was coding an assembly language. So I was literally moving data values from one register in the computer to another register in the computer. So that's what level we were working at. So think about how many iterations of things have happened in the last 40-ish years. And not that I know a lot about AI, I'm not going to pretend that I do, but to me, it's just one more evolution of computing that allows all of us to do things easier and better and faster and more complex.
And
So,
yeah, and I wanted to say both Teresa and I worked in fields like you were talking about the .com and all that. We were working in, you know,
defense.
federal
Yeah.
contracts, so we weren't really impacted by that. And I mean, I like to think I last worked on air traffic control, so I like to think that we're not using AI for that just yet. But I mean, I'm sure I would see it more as a tool. I don't know. It's hard to know what will happen though in 20 years.
Yeah. I
I
mean, but
don't
just like I
know.
said, look at the evolution just to this
Yeah.
point. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, I figure our grandkids won't have to drive cars, is what I'm guessing, but I don't know.
Oh, definitely. I my last job was working on autonomous vehicles, so that was a fun one.
Thank you. Yeah, I've also heard lots of perspective that like if AI makes it so that like everyone can code, it's just going to make a lot of people in other sectors realize that like they don't really understand what's going on in the code or what AI is doing, and so they need software engineers even more to like fix all the mistakes that AI might not be perfect at yet. And then even if AI does get perfect, there's just going to be so much code going out there that we need talented software engineers who can help make the like design decisions and help understand things more deeply than someone with no technical experience who's using AI would not be able to make.
I mean, it's not magic yet. So,
Yeah, it does still hallucinate. There are still things that AI does very, very weird. So,
If I may, I want to touch on something
yeah.
one of my mentors told me, and it's that AI won't make you an engineer, but it'll make you a better engineer. And as he explained it, it really makes a lot of sense, and it touches on what you were saying, Michael. Like, if you don't know why you're making what you're making and you're just making it, you're going to have data structure problems. You're going to be hit with 5,000 people and your site's going to crash because it can't handle it. All these better practices. AI don't know this. It doesn't have experience. It just has a book, an LLM to read from. And yeah, use AI after you've learned what you need to learn to help you not get tunnel vision. It helps me a lot not be tunnel vision on things. But I also want to touch is like LLMs is Python's bread and butter, guys. Like, you might not. Mary Alice felt like she didn't have a lot to say on the Python course, but I'm gonna let you know that's the LLMs all base Python, and that's how people get their integrated AIs into their websites. It's Python. So that's all your algorithms, your data structures, how to have it reply to people, all those things. And that's a big thing right now with phones and websites where when you pop in, they'll have an AI chat thing pop up immediately and go, "Hey, what do you need help with?"
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Steven's awesome. Thanks for pitching both.
All right. Any other questions? If you feel like you've gotten everything out of our session tonight that you need to, feel free to hop off because I know Joy's going to be starting in just a couple minutes, or hang around if you're going to be joining Joy's session in just a couple minutes. And otherwise, any other questions, feel free to shoot them out now. You can always reach Teresa, Susie, and I through Slack if there are things that come up along the way or if there's support that you need.
If someone's on desktop on Zoom, if they could please save the chat and share it, because I don't think that that's accessible from the recording. So since we referenced it a lot and since a lot of questions were answered, I think that'd be really helpful if someone can post it in response to this recording.
Yeah, I'll double check. I feel like it does give me a text file of chat and it gives me a text file of the transcript, but yeah.
When
I'll
you
go ahead
record
and
it?
copy all those
Okay.
keys. Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, if that's all, I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording. Thanks everybody for joining tonight. We're here if you need anything and we'll see you around.